Welcome to the Humourology podcast with me, Paul Barros. This is where we put the fun into business fundamentals. We were having so much fun, we made the podcast with Justin Moorhouse into a two-parter. Here's part two.
Because I forget people's names. I remember everybody's faces, but I forget their names.
Well, yeah, it's weird. It's actually, one day I'll teach you what Dr. Richard Bandler, who co-developed the whole field of NLP, taught me how to remember names, and it was so. Well, I'll tell you now. It was so simple, and by the way, you're really good. I love on your podcast the crowd work when you do that, because you're really good at that. But you can remember it in the room, can't you? And
Yeah.
I said to Richard Bandler, I said, what is your trick for doing it? And he goes, I literally hallucinate their name on their forehead. And I just like go, okay, so I've written Justin on your forehead.
That's amazing, isn't it?
And you go, well, God, I wouldn't have thought of doing that. But he goes, well, yeah, because you can do anything with your mind. And so if you go like glitter with Paul on it or something.
Are you into NLP? Because I'm fascinated and frightened by it.
I don't, well, because I know a lot about it, and I've worked with Richard, and I know things. I don't think it is a thing. I think it's a collection of things that they've just perfected. You know, they've looked at if they wanted to know how to do great crowd work in a comedy club, or I wanted to do it, I would come and I would ask you a load of questions about what you are doing and how you are doing it, what your thought process is, how you are adjusting to it, and then I would be able to get to the source of that.
Right.
And
so like you're back engineering it.
Yeah. It's reverse engineering it, essentially. Yeah. But it's also psychologically, like, what are you doing? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
And that's actually what it is. It's actually going in and doing funny. I was in. This is going to sound like one of those name drops, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I just realized that I'm going to do the big name drop. So I worked the American comedy clubs a lot. And when Eddie Izzard first went over there, he asked me to go and see a couple of shows to see, like, should I change words? Should I change Kit Kat into Hershey's, all that shit. And it was thing. And I said, to him from a psychological point of view, and we talked about it for a long time, what you're doing is you are stealing skills, because he used to talk about, I used to watch Billy Connolly, and when Eddie's very honest about when he started, he wasn't very good. And so he just started to read about and watch films about and documentaries about people who were not just in comedy. He's passionate about war heroes and people, generals. And he would take some of their tactics and put them into the way he did things. And really,
that's interesting.
Really, that's what you've probably done it unconsciously.
I do it consciously.
Oh, well, there you make
I go and watch specifically dance, because I know nothing about dance. I like music, so I go and watch bands and everything else, and I can enjoy their performance. But I go and watch dance, and I watch different types of dance. And what I get from that is a sense of how they hold themselves on stage. Dance is one of the most interesting things to watch. Every movement is important. And in comedy, every word is important. And if you put the same emphasis on your words as you do and it's about power and poise and position and everything else. Like I went to watch Swan Lake in Paris, the Paris Opera. It was amazing. And I didn't follow the story. I mean, the story is nonsensical, isn't it, Swan Lake? But I watched every part of that movement and the preciseness of it and the and I love that kind of, the 10,000 hour thing and all that sort of thing. And I can and I always say this about comedy, and I always say nobody who's made it, and when I say made it, has become like household names and is doing well and smashing it everywhere. Nobody from who I know from the circuit who came up at the same time as me has made it. A hasn't put the work in. B were already very talented. Or C did a load of learning. We used to call John Bishop. We used to mock him. Yeah, we used to call him. How did you get that?
Yeah.
Because when we started out, he'd go, "How did you get that?" You go, "Oh, I'm doing the warm up on Question of Sport. How do you get that?" And he'd learn and he'd go and find out because he came similar to me. He came from a business background and he had proper work and everything else. So he realized the 9 to 5 of it and the kind of effort you put in. And that's what he used to do. He used to go and stand at the back of, he would go and see every big name that was on tour. He'd go and stand in the sound box and watch what was going on. And I think he would probably clock in how much of the tickets, how he gets the cut from that. What does that person do for a job? And now he's very successful.
Well, the term in psychology or NLP or anything is modeling. You
Yeah.
model, but there's no point modeling people who are shit. You only model
Mhm.
success. So you go and, but by the way, surrounding yourself with it as well. And you just told John Bishop's story about he's modeling what he is doing, but also having the vision and the balls to do it.
Mhm.
Eddie Izzard was saying, I'm going to be a film star. Now was a hell of a leap from, doing a
Covent
back room
Garden.
in
Yeah.
Southeast London.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the mindset. And I talk about it on stage from a psychological point about belief systems. Do you believe that you can do these things? I mean, you've been in films and TV and everything. Now, if 30 years ago, that would have seemed ridiculous, wouldn't it?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, so what happened that made it believable? Was it little steps, or was it there was always a big vision, and then you reverse engineered it essentially?
Um, I, I don't know how I did it, but probably how I think I did it was when I first started out, I was catapulted into various opportunities. So within less than a year of being a stand-up comedian, I had won the Northwest City Life Comedian of the Year, and I'd got the part in Phoenix Nights. I'd got myself an agent, and I got myself regular work at the Comedy Store because all those things happened around at the same time, and it was the confluence, is that the right word? The kind of coming together of all these things, and I've still got my diaries from those times, and about and I realized two things. One, I had to make a certain amount of money every month because I had bills.
Yeah.
And my mate Toby Foster, who was in Phoenix Nights with me, says nothing makes you work hard than like having to pay the mortgage. And I had a number at the end of each month which I had to get to. I think it was 1,500 quid or something like that. I had to get to that number. And then when I realized that was planned work coming in, and when I started to realize that before the month started, I'd got the money in the book already, I was like, right, let's do this. And then I thought to myself, these comedians that I hang around with now and this new world that I'm in and these new friends that I've got, um, they're looking at me because I'm Johnny come lately. I've had these chances. I've had this part in this successful sitcom. I've won this award. I've done this comedy store. They're waiting for you to fall. They're waiting for you to fall flat on your face. And I just thought to myself, I'm not going to let that happen. For the first time in my life, I worked hard at something because I'd found my thing.
Is it also finding your tribe as well? You
Oh,
suddenly fit into this. I get this.
yeah, and so comfortable. Just like putting on an old pair of shoes. Just felt this was right. This is how I want to be. This is how I imagined it would be. This is how I, visualized it. This is when because I had in the first couple of years, I had all these kind of like Hollywood moments where, like, I was driving the car and I was listening to five. live at the time, and there was a guy on there. Oh no, it might have been. No, in fact, it was Radio Manchester, and a guy was interviewing a comedian, and I can't remember who it was, and he was talking about coming up doing a show, and he sounded like he was so looking forward to it, and he was basically selling his show on the radio. And I thought, you know what? I love comedy. I used to go and watch Peter Kay and Johnny Vegas. I was kind of like a fan of both of those at the time, and they were sort of bubbling on the underground scene in Manchester at the Frog and Bucket and the Buzz Comedy Club, which were these two great institutions. And the minute the guy stopped talking on the radio, I phoned the Frog and Bucket up, and I said, "How do you become a stand-up comedian?" Had never occurred to me before. And they said, "Oh, we come down on Monday, have an open mic night down." I put my name down for 2 weeks hence, told a few people. Everybody went, "What? No way. You're not going to do that, are you?" A lot of people went, "Oh, yeah, you should go do it. You're funny." And then the first, you spoke to a lot of comedians and people like this. No one ever says the first, how was your first gig? They never ever go, "It was all right." It was either triumph or disaster.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's only one way of going from that, down or up. There's only one way to go. So the first week smashed the gig. It was unbelievable. I've never had a gig like it since. The second week I went back, King of the Comics. I wrote a new set. I wrote a new 5 minutes. I chewed gum. I don't chew gum in real life. I just decided that was going to be my thing. That way, chew gum. Died on my arse. Absolutely died on my arse. And the third week I went back because I wasn't to be beaten. The third week I back and I did okay. So I had a great one, a bad one, and an okay one. And I distinctly remember the feeling of walking out of the Frog and Bucket that night. And it was summer. It was still a beautiful, warm, balmy summer evening in Manchester. And I remember the feeling. And I said to my pal Mike, who's like still my good pal now, and he went, "What do you think of you?" I went, "Yeah." I said, "Because how do you say I used to be a clown? How do you say I used to be a comedian?" And when I hear people who have given up, I think, "Oh, why? How can you give up?" It, you
Oh.
know, I'd got it back. By then it was there, and I couldn't let it not happen again.
That's fascinating. Well, it also is very interesting from the process. Some people listen to this podcast for tips that they can use in their lives, which I think so much of what you say can be. But you said something that I do, and I just suddenly realized is that I do this whole thing about I will tell a load of people I'm going to do it
Yeah,
because I'm cannot stand the thought of people going, "Oh, I thought you were going to do that." And
yeah,
now I feel I'm all in. I have to
yeah,
do it. I'm going to write a book. No, 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 and everything, and it's going to be this. I'm going to do. And but that is kind of what I would call the key to success is have the vision and then have the bottle to actually tell people and go
hmm
call yourself out, really.
But I think perhaps Paul, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and it's probably not humorology in that it's more life skills. But I think the big secret to that is we can all have a great idea, we can tell other people about it. You need to tell yourself that as well. If you
Oh,
can make yourself your ego, if your ego can feel the shame of you not doing it the same as your friends, then I think that's what can drive. That's what really drives single-minded people. Like I've recently decided to do this kind of the sort of Mercedes wheel thing of just doing three things.
yeah.
I've really decided to do that and take on the guru that is Matthew McConaughey, who says no matter what you do, just don't half-ass anything.
Yeah.
My new mantra for 2025 is whatever I'm doing, I'm not half-assing it. So my podcast is gonna be the best it could possibly be. My stand-up is gonna be. I've started on tour. I've done about 10 dates on tour. It's not quite there. It's not right. And Sam, my tour manager, is going, "I think you're beating yourself up a bit there." I'm going, "I'm not. I'm just, I'm just want it to be not good enough. It's got to be as good as it can be."
But that's pride as well, isn't it? Because I
Yeah.
mean, I think, but by the way, successful people are a little bit obsessive because,
Mm.
come on, how many comics do we all know, all those years in comedy clubs? One person cannot be laughing in row three, and yet there's 400 people laughing, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and, and you're concentrate on that one
Of course,
bug.
yeah.
And I don't
Yeah,
think,
you can. That thing, and I still do that sort of thing. Is I still make the rookie error of like talking a gig down. If something doesn't quite work, just go, well, this is going a bit shit. And then the minute you've said that, the audience think, well, he
yeah.
says it's a bit shit. I thought it was a bit shit. Everyone else thinks it's going to be a bit shit. But I kind of almost play with that now. I allow myself to do that and then try and rescue it, which is a dangerous thing to do, but
Well, no, but
I
that's
can't
the
help do
real
it.
skill because you're testing your metal because you're going, how can I put myself into a corner and then get out of the
Yeah,
corner,
yeah.
which becomes like even more testing. It's
Is that
funny.
masochistic?
I think it's actually manipulative, if that's a word.
Right.
You're it,
Arrogance.
well, no, because you're trying to manipulate the audience, and you're going, so, "Wow, if I did that." If you remember, I don't know if you remember Alan Davis's opening in the old days. He's about to go on tour, actually, Alan, isn't he? And
Mm.
he's opening in the old days. He would just shamble on and start talking about, oh,
Yeah, God, this is like you at work. You don't just get in at
that's
work. You
it.
take your time. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And he would wait until the audience started to get uncomfortable, and then he would break it. And
yeah,
I think that's kind of like the testing. How good am I? Can I
yeah,
take it over here and still
yeah.
bring it back?
I love because we spend so long when we write a tour and then we put it together of getting the walk on music right and the intro and everything right. And I think the greatest stand-up performance ever committed to film, the Richard Pryor classic, he just walks on when people are still taking the seats. He walks on and goes, "Give it up for Patti LaBelle." Well, Patti LaBelle was his warm back, which is amazing, isn't it? He just walks in and goes, "Sit down, sit down, sit down," and just starts. And that for me is confidence and being the absolute master of what you do at that point.
Well, if you could give advice to anyone who had to get up, and everybody, like we said before, has to get up to make a speech. What
Hmm.
what what is the advice from 25 years of stand up that you would give to people? What can they do the difference that makes a difference?
Don't just think about the words you've written. Make sure you've written the words that you want to write and they're good. If they're good enough, they're good enough. They're fine. Don't worry about the words. People spend too much time when they're public speaking worrying about the words and things. If you know what you're talking about, the words will be fine. Don't worry about that. Does it sound all right? You need to make it sound all right. The words are good. So spend more time thinking about how you're going to stand. What are you wearing? Where do you put your hands? you know if you write if you, and I'll do this now for new material. If you need to want to take a pause, write in big letters pause. And I've helped some people when I've done bits of corporate work and they've gone, "Oh, I wish I could do public speaking," and I've gone, "I can help you a little bit." And I've done a little bit of one-to-one stuff with people and I've just gone, break it down, use the comedian's trick of the rule of three. You da da da. Just do that a few times. Gets the audience knowing that you know what you're talking about. Stand. If you want to put your hand in your pocket, put your hand in your pocket. If your hand shakes, don't hold a piece of paper. Put it on a lectern. And it's planning. Absolute. The number one thing is plan. Plan the performance. Don't worry about the words.
No, that's perfect because I've obviously trained a lot of people over the years to public speak, and that's such brilliant advice and everything. Well, the funny thing is that if people hold a piece of paper, that's all you're looking at, and if
Yeah.
they're shaking those things,
Oh, there's that one where you see them holding the piece of paper, it's going so long, and then they get another one, it's got another one behind it. Go, how long is this gonna be? How long is this gonna be? Which
and then
I take all that advice, and then I'll tell you this: I've been a best man once. Okay, once I've been the best man. Died on my ass
how long ago was that?
as a comedian about 12 years ago from my mate Chippy. Best man, and the rookie year I made the classic debut hour at Edinburgh new comedian thing. I decided to do a slideshow for whatever reason I'll never know, and my technology failed. I had nothing to talk about. And
Oh,
people, and we this now feeds back to what we first started talking about. And my mates still take the piss out of me. They'll come and see a gig. I'm doing live at the Apollo. They'll go, I hope it's not as bad as Chippy's wedding.
Perfect. Well, but by the way, but one of the things I always like to say to people is, and this is a weird psychological thing, I always say, look forward to stuff going wrong. But
Hmm.
because but you can get very tense if you don't do it. And
Yeah,
I
but mine didn't go wrong. It was wrong before I started. It
oh
never
yeah,
got
there you
going.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you are the master in the room of shit happening, and you're dealing with it. But this was
Yeah.
an
Too much pressure.
overall.
Yeah, I too much pressure. I start Barney, my son, who's 28 now, was about 14. It was always longer than that. And he was scurrying around on the floor trying to plug it in, and I was blaming him. I was going, Barney, you're making this look and then it just drifted. And what I'd done is I'd front loaded the speech with all the platitudes about him. Do you know what a great
Yeah,
guy he was? How I'd always trust him, how I would give him my life, how his family were great to me, and all this sort of stuff. And then here comes the good stuff. And I had a slideshow with all these jokes on of us, pictures of his old car and things. None of it. None of it. People keep still asking me now. I've still got the slideshow. Do you want to do it again? I go, no, I don't want to do it again.
It's- but by the way, everybody has to die on
Yeah.
some in comedy.
Oh, I'm waiting for it. I've not happened to me for quite some time. I'm waiting for it. And when
Yeah,
it comes, I'll just go, there you go. Thank you.
it's
Because you need
it's
that every now and then. You do
yeah.
need that kind of sort of, that idea that you are fallible, I suppose. You keep push your eye back on the ball and everything else. I suppose that's what it is, isn't it?
Well, it is, and well, and keeps you rooted, really, doesn't
Yeah.
it? I always say when people are nervous, I said, I've seen every comic you've ever heard of die on their ass
Yeah.
at some stage.
Yeah.
And
And it's
it's,
beautiful.
yeah,
You'd be somewhere like the comedy store and you'll see somebody, their monitor's there or the TV's there, and there's something will just not feel right. You think, oh, they're not having a good one. And then suddenly everybody slides out of that door and you
that's
just see
right.
the shadows appear at the back of the room because they want to watch this live. It's just the best. It really is.
And it-
It's that old, the old comics joke, isn't it? About the two comics meet up, they're not seen each other for 20 years and how you doing, mate? I'm doing all right. How are you? He goes, yeah, what you been up to? He said, I've been out in the States. He said, I got a special on HBO and it, he goes, I didn't know about that. He said, yeah. He said, well, else you been doing? He said, well, I'm doing a national choice. It's sold out 3 nights at the Palladium. I go, "Oh, I didn't know about that." He says, anyway, what are you doing in Manchester? He said, I'm just doing some tryout things. I did the Frog and Bucket on Monday. He said, died on my arse. He said, yeah, I heard about that.
I know it's just oh, the chagrin. Yeah,
Yes, indeed,
we
indeed,
we
indeed.
we we love that. Again, I just wondered if do you think because I work with a lot of people who are like inspirational speakers and everything. Do you think you can be a great communicator without humor, or is it just good to that level and great is when you add in humor?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. I like you, I've seen a lot of these inspirational, motivational speakers, and forgive my impudence, but a lot of them talk about the same thing dressed in a different way. It's a lot of the similar kind of thing, and it's motivation. It's kind of good and inspirational. Um, I watched a guy, and you probably know him, Jez Rose.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he performance was fantastic, and he's got little jokes in there, and he looks great, and he's done everything right. What he's saying, it probably does make a lot of sense, and it's great, and he's got a great story. But the delivery and the jokes and the presentation and the confidence and the warmth is what, for me, sets him apart from a lot of the others. And then on the other hand, I've seen a lot of sporting stars and it's kind of monotone. And I think just get to the bit where you win the gold medal. Let's see it.
yeah.
Let's see the video.
It's
And then let's get out of here.
my mate Scott Quinnell,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
who I advise everybody to listen to the podcast with him, but he is. and I'm going to make him blush now, but he is the funniest sports person
Yeah,
who has the chops of a comic.
yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that about him. Yeah.
Timing is fucking exquisite and
Hmm.
everything.
It's not
Um,
fair, is it?
it's not. But the weird thing is because we were talking about education and everything. Scott couldn't read or write until he was 36. We wrote a
Wow.
book together, and I recorded him talking and then transcribed it. He could, but I mean, he can read and write well now because his kid sat on his laps and said, "What does that say, Daddy?" And it forced him into that. But as a communicator, he's funny as fuck.
Hmm.
He's, and he's genuine, he's sincere, he's passionate, and he has all this stuff going on. So it's not really about the education. It's about, I'm sure he's, like we all are on that spectrum somewhere, but there's so much good on that as well, so much brilliance on it.
Hmm.
You know, what is the difference? And why do we love people so much who make us laugh?
I mean, is it primeval? Is it, did cavemen laugh as much as we laugh? Did they
Maybe,
need to?
maybe
Is it the
more.
stresses of the modern world that we did they?
I don't know. I mean, because if they were okay, I'm going to take a premise now. Children laugh like an average 300 times a day, or they say, and adults 6.5 times a day, or whatever it is. Um, and I would have thought that if you're a caveman, you would be more inclined to be laughter. Or was it so serious that you were just trying to survive? But surely part of survival would be laughing at that the saber-toothed tiger just missed you, you know.
But did they were they sophisticated to understand absurdity and irony and all these, pathos and these things? I suppose they would be a very different. Did they laugh at people, tripping up? I mean, would that have been fun? I don't know.
A mammoth stood on his foot. And
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I stood in the mammoth dung, you can't, yeah. Trying to find a bag big enough for that.
oh no, maybe we've opened a whole can of worms there of like
Yeah.
where we're doing. We've reached the point in the show um,
Yep.
where we're going to ask quick fire questions,
Quick fires. Yep. Good.
if that's all right.
I'm
Um,
ready.
Quick fire questions.
who's the funniest business person that you've met?
That is kind of, oh gosh.
Well, I suppose it can be. I don't want just a comic. I want somebody who surprised you.
Who's not a comedian who is very,
Yeah,
very funny. Yeah, I suppose it's a difficult question to ask that because most comedians find it hard to accept that people who aren't comedians are funny. There's that Jerry Seinfeld clip where I can't remember when he's talking to one of the comedians and his comedians getting cars and he talks about going to see a Broadway show and he goes, did you hear the laughter they got for that joke? A round of applause. Not even a good
absolutely.
joke. Do you know what I have to do to get a round of applause?
Well,
Um,
but that takes us into a very interesting area. It's not quick fire, but I don't care anymore. But that whole thing about there are very lots of comedians like yourself can be great actors, but the other way around it just doesn't work.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? I think, yeah. And but I also to kind of qualify that is I've done a bit of acting, but I would never have the audacity to call myself an actor. I'm a comedian doing a bit of acting, and I'm not trained to be an actor, and it's not my stock in trade. So I think what I'm doing is I'm just using my skill set to get away with it a lot of the time.
Well, okay, I'm going to push back on that because uh, on stage it's an act, so therefore you
Mm.
become an actor. So because you're doing it, and you
Yeah,
just said to me earlier on, which I found fascinating, you study dance, for instance, about how to be on set. You have been studying for 25 years.
I suppose so. But I find it very natural, the acting that I do. Any acting that I've done and I've taken on and been successful, I've done. I found it quite easy. I
Well,
found it, you know,
maybe you're just good.
oh yeah, maybe it's that subconscious excellence, whatever you call it.
Or
Yeah,
unconscious competence. But
yeah,
you go, well, but that's interesting because psychologically you're dismissing something you're good at. It's like Wayne
yeah,
Rooney going, yeah, yeah, I could just trap a ball. That,
yeah.
you know,
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give myself some kudos in that. So I've done little bits on television, film acting, and that sort of thing, which is I find it quite frustrating because you're hanging around a lot. I do find that process of that it doesn't appeal to me to do that full time unless it was my own project and I'd written it and that's how I'm presenting my own stuff. But I've done two plays at the Royal Exchange in Manchester, which are very dear to me, and they're the things that I'm most proud of that I've ever done. I did a Harold Brickhouse play called Zach. There's a guy who wrote Hobson's Choice, and he wrote this other thing, and it's this Cinderella story of a simple man. His Bolshevik beard, and it's a Victorian, well, pre-Victorian, Edwardian, probably not, early turn of the century stuff. And I did that, and then I did Jim Cartwright's play too, which I don't know if you know Jim. That play, that's two
I know Jim
characters,
can't write it. Yeah.
and you play seven characters. You play seven ages of man, and it's all mime and everything else. And I got great reviews and packed houses and those two things. And I worked at that. But what I did is I worked my natural instincts and followed direction. Because when you're doing stand up, no one's directing you. When you're acting, you've got to listen and accept direction. And I love that kind of saying to the director, going, "Well, here are my choices. These are the choices I'm making." And it's like it sounds so kind of pathetic, but I love that this is a safe space. I love that creative. I love allowing myself to go into that world and just going accepting it and just letting myself be this conduit for the great words and my interpretation and direction. And I love the collaborative aspect of that because it's a lonely world sometimes being a stand-up. It kind of, you hang around with comedians, but it's not really. You're on your own, really. You're a lone wolf. Lovely being part of a company.
Yeah. So you are an actor.
I'm an actor. I'm accepting that now.
Yeah.
Change my bio.
I'm going to ask you that question again. Justin, who's the funniest business person you've met?
Um, I've met quite a lot of business people, and a lot of them are dry. But I think if you don't work for somebody and you work for yourself, does that qualify you as you being a business person? If you got
Yeah.
your own brand,
Yeah.
you got your own brand, you got your own personality. We've already mentioned him then, Eric Cantona. He's the CEO of Eric Cantona Corporation. He is the Chief Product Development Officer. And he is impressively funny and humble, That's the one thing about him is I think that maybe etymologists could tell us this. Is there a connection between humility and humor? They both start with the hum. He stayed and signed autographs for every single supporting artist on the film. He queued up for his lunch with everybody else. He's the leader. He was this kind of star of the show, but he was dead funny. He was really, really funny and very, very, very impressive. The greatest experience of my life was he invited us, a few of us, to a testimonial, Paul Scholes' testimonial at Old Trafford between Paul Scholes of Man United and Pele's Cosmos, New York Cosmos. And we went to the after show party, and I walked into the lobby, and Eric Cantona was talking to Pele, and he said, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to speak to my friend," and turned to me. He got rid of Pele for me. I thought, well, that's it. Life made.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh God. That that's one of the best stories I've ever heard, to be honest with you.
I think I'm the only one out of that triumvirate who's ever telling that story.
And we were talking about name dropping earlier. Fucking
Yeah.
hell. Um, what what book makes you laugh, Justin?
I think still, and it's from a long time ago, the Adrian Mole books when I was a kid. I still now will read them and they're hilarious. They're brilliant. They capture a moment in time. I was that age when they came out. You know, like some kids grew up with Harry Potter and there's my son was the same age as Harry Potter and I was the same age as Adrian Mole. So I loved those and those are still the funniest books that I've ever read.
Oh, it's Sue Townsend.
Yeah.
Fantastic. No,
I was
actually,
in Leicester last night, not far from the Sue Townsend Theatre.
Oh, really? Oh, there is a
Yeah.
Sue Townsend theatre. I didn't even know
Yes.
that.
A small studio space. Yeah.
Oh, well, she deserves it because actually they were brilliant. You're the first person
Absolutely brilliant.
to say that. But now, oh, yeah, yeah, we should go back and reread them. What film makes you laugh?
The producers.
The original.
I like them both, but I actually prefer the musical.
It's funny because this is because you did Pele and Eric Cantona earlier. I'm going
Yeah.
to go. Nathan Lane is a friend of mine. Who,
Wow.
and there is a man who is the most brilliant actor, but
Yeah.
funny as fuck.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can definitely see that. You can definitely see that in a heart. That just still now. I mean, I love every aspect of Mel Brooks's work. I liked all the stuff that he's ever done, but I've seen it on stage a few times. But that, the Matthew Broderick and that version, that's I just think it's the soundtrack of my life. It's my favorite film,
Well,
my favorite musical, my favorite everything.
no, I honestly, and he is an absolute genius and such a sweet man.
Yeah.
But do you know that because I've known him for, oh God, for over 25 years, and he used to be in a double act
Did
when he
he?
started. He was a comic, a fledgling comic, when he was
Wow.
first starting out.
You got a lot in common then, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And
Double act. You don't see enough double acts these days.
well, yeah, it's the money, I think.
It's the money. Yeah, definitely is the money.
It's everybody having to split the money. In the old days, of course, you used to get more as a double act.
You get a little bit more, did you?
Yeah. Well, actually, I
Yeah.
think we got, I mean, at the store, I think Kim Kinney used to give us knocking. We weren't far off, you know, what a
Double
single
money.
act was getting,
Oh,
but I mean, I
those days
suppose
have
we were
changed.
less, but not a lot less, if that makes sense. So yeah, well that's when you used to get the money in a brown paper bag.
Ah, I remember those days.
Oh, those were nice,
Yeah.
weren't they? I'm going to take a little turn to the other side. Um,
Yep.
what's not funny?
What's not funny is people who think they can decide what is funny and not funny.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and what's the worst of those people are people who work in comedy. Um, I am a great believer in that there is no subject off limits. No subject off limits.
Yep.
Whether you choose to do a joke about something at a certain time and you deliberately want to be offensive, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But you can't tell me you can't make jokes about insert name of latest horrible thing that's happened because you can. Because great comedians have made jokes about the Holocaust. They made jokes about tragedies. They made jokes about their own family suicides. They made fun about their own children dying. I mean, goodness me, you can't tell that person they're not allowed to joke about their own life. So you can't pick the subject. So I find that deeply unfunny. Possibly not the right answer for that question, but it gives me opportunity to say that.
No. It's very true. I mean,
I don't think anything isn't funny. Everything is funny. I mean, clearly, personal tragedy and is not funny to you, but it might be funny to somebody else. It might
well,
be.
do you remember my friend who you probably know as well, Paul Provenza, the American comic?
Yes.
Yeah. So my friend, I helped out. I've got a credit on the Aristocrats, and the Aristocrats when Gilbert Gottfried did the roast the day after 9/11,
Hmm.
and he goes, I'm sorry I was late, but my plane had a stopover at the Twin Towers. You go, and the whole audience turns on him and goes,
Yeah,
"Too soon, too soon." They go crazy, and then he doubles down and launches into telling the aristocrats gag.
yeah, yeah. You know, Frank Skinner in one of his books talks about this sort of thing, and he goes, "You can't decide what isn't and not right subject for comedy." He went, "You don't know, somebody in the audience, parents may have been mown down by a car while they were trying to help a chicken get to the other side of the road."
Yeah, of
You
course.
know, it does. Andre Vincent quite well, don't you?
Yeah, yeah,
And he is on Facebook when comedians start talking about, again, I don't want to, insert name of recent thing that happened to a celebrity. Oh, I think if anyone's doing jokes about this, it's really in poor taste. It's really this. No, we have to defend the right to tell the jokes about. Without being too pompous, truth seekers and bubble pushers, bubble prickers. We have to do this. This is what we do, and we can get it wrong, and we can. I mean, you don't. No one's going to make a joke about a child dying at that child's funeral in front of their grieving parents. That isn't the right time. But you can make a joke about something along. There's. I mean, I'm going
how you
too
come at the
far.
joke and the attitude of the joke. And I mean, and sometimes people get offended now when the joke is involved in it, but the joke could be on you.
Yeah. The subject matter isn't what you should be upset about. It's the intent. And as long as I am a great believer in punching up and not punching down. And I look back at some of my jokes that I did when I first started out, and I think, oh, I wouldn't do that now because I know better. I think, you pick your targets, and if you're punching up, you're always safe. You're always safe.
Yeah, no, I agree. What word makes you laugh?
Yogurt. Every time I have the word yogurt, Richard Herring's got a whole show about yogurt, but it was nothing to do with that. My grandma said to my brother when he was about 14, 15, and my grandparents lived on the Fylde coast near Blackpool, and we got shipped off there for a week's half-term holiday. And when you get to 14, 15, you don't want to be staying at your grandparents in Cleveland. And he was moping around the house, typical 14-year-old with his Walkman on, probably listening to The Cure or something. And she goes, "What's up with you? You've had a yogurt." Now the word yogurt just makes me laugh. If I have a yogurt, I think, oh, at least I'll be cheery later. All of life's troubles can go when you've had a yogurt. She was the woman that once said, in my mum's house on a Sunday once, she went, I was 18 before I saw the sea, Justin. I was 35 before I knew what a lesbian was. And now your mum's cooking lasagna for Sunday dinner. The world's gone mad.
God, sorry. I'll have to take a moment. Brilliant. Uh, what sound makes you laugh?
Farts.
There you go.
Yeah. Just find them hilarious. I find there's a thing on Instagram called Predict My Fart. And it's, I don't know
What?
if you've seen it.
No.
You go to somebody and you're about to do a fart and you go, "Predict my fart," and they'll go, "Brrr." And if you do it exactly the same, and they go, "Yes," and they record these and put them on the thing. It's funny. If you can't laugh at farts, then there's something wrong with you.
So we go back to the cavemen who were probably laughing at farts, weren't they?
Probably were, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
And a sort of a nicer version of that as well is, if you want, is Sprite challenge, where people drink a full bottle of Sprite and then they talk as they burp. It's kind of, and it like voices from the dead. It's just great. It's pathetic but funny.
Oh, that's great. Well, we talked about comedians being very intellectually smart and everything. Would you rather, because you talked earlier on about regretting that you didn't have more education and everything, would you rather be considered clever or funny?
Funny.
There you go. Well, there wasn't any gap in that, was there?
No, because I know I'm clever.
Well, I think actually you have to be funny.
Yeah, but I don't care if people think I'm clever or not, because I impress them by being funny. I impress myself by being clever. That sounds so easy,
That's
but it's
nice.
true.
No,
True though,
that's
it's true.
nice. I like that. And finally, Justin, desert island gags. You can only take one gag with you to a desert island. What would it be?
One of two, and I'm gonna go with a man in the pub drinking. And the barman says, "You seem to be drinking quite a lot, mate." And he says, "I've lost my job." And he says, "Oh, that's really sad." He said, "I'll give you another drink." He said, "But just be careful." So he pours him a drink. And he says, "You'll get another job." He said, "I don't know if I'll get another job." He said, I think it's gone now." He said, "What do you do?" He said, I'm a composer. I write music." He said, "Well, you've lost your job." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Why?" He said, "Well, I don't know." He says, "Just weren't happy with my work." He said, "I love the piano. I love everything that music brings to my life." The barman said, "We've got a piano there. If you want to have a little play." He says, "Next drink's on me if you play something nice." So he gets down, he sits at the piano and he lifts the lid and he gets the, and he just plays this beautiful lament. It's this gorgeous, heartfelt, song of without words, and with this landscape of love and heavy with lost possibility. And this song is just heartbreaking. There are grown men, openly moved by this. And the barman said, "That's incredible." As he pours him another drink, he says, "How can anybody sack you when you've got that talent?" He said, "What's that called?" He said, "That's the problem." He said, "I called it, I love you that much I can't shit."
Well, that will keep you amused on a desert island.
I like that one. Oh, can I have two? And then I'll decide on the day which one I'm taking.
Okay.
Is the one, and these are both jokes that my grandma told me. Woman goes in the pub and she sees a little old man in the corner. She says, "Excuse me, are you Albert, the strong man from the circus?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "I am." She said, "I loved you. I loved you." He said, "What do you mean you loved me?" She said, "I loved you as a kid." She said, "And I loved you when I got old as well because I saw your adult act." He said, "Oh, yeah." And she said to her friend, she said, "This is Albert, the strong man. He used to bend an iron bar on his penis. His erect penis he used to bend an iron bar on it." That's incredible. She says, "Do you not do that anymore?" He says, "Oh, no, love." He says, "The wrists have gone."
Oh, oh, I love that so much. Oh,
It's just nice, isn't it?
is Justin Moorhouse. You've not only been very, very funny, but incredibly clever. And when they say, big and clever, you are it. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being a
Thanks for having
brilliant
me.
guest. You've been a brilliant guest on the Humourology podcast. Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Paul. Lovely to be here. Finally.
Oh, fun. It's well worth the bloody wait, mate. The Humourology podcast was hosted by Paul Barros, produced by David Rose, music by Steve Hayworth, creative direction by Les Hughes, and additional research by Helen Sykes. Please remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. This has been a Big Sky production.